I never imagined that an ordinary cleaning day would change my life forever. There I was, Sophia at 35, sweating in the dusty attic of my grandmother's house. 2 weeks after her funeral, the task of organizing her belongings fell on me like an unexpected weight. As I moved between piles of boxes and furniture covered by yellowed sheets, my eyes caught something different. Hidden behind an old dresser, a shoebox caught my attention. It seemed to have been recently handled, tied with a faded red ribbon, as if guarding a precious treasure. Intrigued, I took the box near the attic's only window. The evening light filtered through the dirty glass, casting a golden glow on my hands as I undid the ribbon's bow with trembling fingers. The scent of old paper filled my senses as I opened the lid. Inside, dozens of yellowed envelopes rested, organized chronologically. I picked up the first envelope and opened it, my heart racing with each word I read. "My dear Thomas," the letter began. I frowned. Thomas? Who the hell was Thomas? In all the years of living with my grandmother, I had never heard of anyone by that name. Grandma had been married to my grandfather for over 50 years, until his death 5 years ago. I continued reading, my surprise growing with each line. Another day passes and I lack the courage to send these words. The weight of the unsaid grows in my chest, but the fear of changing the course of our lives paralyzes me. How can I choose between the love I feel for you and the expectations everyone has of me? I let out a surprised sigh. The elegant handwriting was unmistakably my grandmother's, but the words, they revealed a woman I had never known. A passionate, conflicted woman, very different from the practical and reserved grandmother I remembered. With my hands trembling even more, I put the first letter aside and picked up another, and another, and yet another. Each opened envelope showed me more about this secret love, this Thomas who seemed to have captured my grandmother's heart so many years ago. When I finally looked up, the sun had already set. I was surrounded by scattered letters, the attic dust dancing in the twilight like the secrets that now floated in the air around me. At that moment, I knew I had stumbled upon something that would change everything I thought I knew about my family, about my grandmother. Who was this woman who had written these passionate letters? And why were they never sent? With my mind spinning and my heart heavy with unanswered questions, I carefully collected the letters and put them back in the box. I knew that my journey to understand my grandmother's past, and perhaps my own future, was just beginning. As I descended the attic stairs, the box firmly secured in my arms, I wondered, what other secrets did this house hold? And more importantly, was I prepared to discover them? The days following my discovery in the attic passed like a blur. I could barely concentrate on work or anything else. My thoughts were constantly focused on that shoebox and the secrets it contained. Every night I sat on my bed, surrounded by Grandma Eleanor's letters. One by one, I read them, trying to piece together the puzzle of my grandmother's secret life. My dear Thomas. Each letter began, and with every page turned, I felt closer to this mysterious man who had captured my grandmother's heart so many years ago. Thomas, I discovered, was an artist. A painter with grand dreams and a free spirit that strongly contrasted with the structured life my grandmother led. The letters spoke of secret meetings in art galleries, passionate conversations about literature and philosophy, promises whispered under the moonlight. "Your eyes shine when you talk about your paintings, Thomas," I read in one of the letters. "I see an entire world in them, a world of possibilities that both frightens and fascinates me at the same time." The more I read, the more I understood the conflict that tore my grandmother apart. On one side, there was Thomas, passion, adventure, an uncertain but exciting future. On the other, her family's expectations, the security of an arranged marriage with the man who would become my grandfather. Mother spoke to me today about the future, said a letter dated summer 1955. She has big plans for me, Thomas. A good marriage, a stable life. How can I tell her that my heart yearns for something completely different? How can I choose between the love I feel for you and the duty I have to my family? I could feel Eleanor's anguish in every word. The weight of family expectations, the fear of disappointing her parents, the uncertainty of a future with an artist struggling to establish himself. It was a conflict that echoed through the decades, making my own heart ache for her. One letter in particular caught my attention. It was dated a week before my grandmother's wedding to my grandfather. My beloved Thomas, this will be my last letter. Tomorrow, I will marry another man, a good, kind man who will give me the life my parents have always dreamed for me. But know that no matter what happens, a part of my heart will always belong to you, to our dreams, our conversations, to the love we shared in that brief and wonderful summer. Tears streamed down my face as I read these words. I had always seen my grandmother as a practical woman, satisfied with her life. I never imagined the sacrifice she had made, the love she had left behind. That night, lying in bed with the letters scattered around me, I wondered how many other people carried secrets like this. How many broken hearts, how many unspoken what-ifs existed in the world. And more importantly, what would I do with this knowledge? How would this revelation about my grandmother's past affect my own future? With these questions spinning in my mind, I fell asleep, dreaming of lost loves and choices not made, while Thomas' face, a man I had never met, danced in the shadows of my dreams. The weight of Grandma Eleanor's letters in my bag seemed to increase with each step I took towards my parents' house. My heart was pounding, a mixture of anxiety and determination running through my veins. I knew this conversation would change everything, but I couldn't keep this secret to myself any longer. As I entered the living room, I found my parents in their usual routine, Mom reading a book and Dad watching the news. The normalcy of the scene almost made me hesitate, but I knew I had to move forward. With a trembling voice, I announced that we needed to talk about Grandma Eleanor. The look my parents exchanged didn't go unnoticed, reinforcing my determination. I took the letters out of my bag and placed them on the coffee table, revealing Thomas' existence. The silence that followed was deafening. I saw my mother's face turn pale, while my father shifted uncomfortably in his armchair. Their reactions only increased my curiosity and my need for answers. I pressed for information, insisting on knowing who Thomas was and why Grandma had never told us about him. My parents' initial reluctance to speak only increased my frustration. They tried to dissuade me, suggesting that some stories from the past should remain in the past. But I couldn't accept that. Gradually, the truth began to emerge. My parents admitted they had known about Thomas for years. My mother revealed that Grandma had told her shortly before she passed away, as if she wanted to unburden herself or perhaps justify her actions. The story that unfolded before me was heartbreaking. Grandma Eleanor, coming from a traditional family, had faced a dilemma between her love for Thomas, an unstable artist, and her family's expectations. The marriage to my grandfather was already practically arranged, offering stability and security. I was shocked to realize that my grandmother had sacrificed love for security. But my parents insisted it wasn't that simple. They argued that she had also loved my grandfather in her own way and had built a good life, a family. As I absorbed these revelations, I looked at the letters spread out on the table. Each envelope contained not just words of unlived love, but also the ramifications of a decision that affected generations. The life I knew, my very existence, were the direct result of my grandmother's choice. At that moment, sitting with my parents in the living room, surrounded by long-held secrets, I realized that my family's history was much more complex than I had ever imagined. Grandma Eleanor's choices, her joys and regrets, were now part of my own journey of self-discovery. I left my parents' house that night with more questions than answers, but with a deeper understanding of the sacrifice and complexity of love. The story of Thomas and Eleanor, though never realized, now lived through me, challenging me to reflect on my own choices and the legacy I would leave for future generations. In the days following the conversation with my parents, I felt like a detective obsessed with an unsolved case. Grandma Eleanor's letters became my treasure map, each word a clue to unravel the mystery of Thomas. Sitting at my desk, I spread the letters around me. I took a notepad and began to jot down every detail that could lead me to Thomas. His surname, Parker, mentions of art exhibitions, names of galleries, even the address of a cafe where they used to meet. With this information in hand, I dove into the digital world. I spent hours scouring genealogy websites, old newspaper archives, and public records. Each unsuccessful search only fueled my determination. It was during one of these nights of relentless research that I found a promising lead. A 1960 newspaper article mentioned an exhibition by Thomas Parker at a local gallery. My heart raced when I saw a black and white photo of a tall, thin man with intense eyes that seemed to look directly at me across the decades. I followed this lead, tracking Thomas' artistic career. I discovered he had moved to Paris in the 70s, gaining recognition in the European art scene. But it was a 2010 obituary that finally gave me the information I was looking for. Thomas had passed away, leaving behind a son, Gabriel. With trembling hands, I typed Gabriel Parker's name into the search engine. I found his profile on a professional social network. He was a curator at a museum in London. Without thinking twice, I sent him a message, briefly explaining who I was and why I was contacting him. The days that followed were an agony of waiting. I checked my email obsessively, waiting for a response. When it finally arrived, I almost dropped my phone in excitement. Gabriel agreed to talk to me via video call. When his face appeared on the screen, I was struck by the resemblance to the photo of Thomas I had seen. The same intense eyes, the same enigmatic smile. For the next 2 hours, Gabriel shared stories about his father. He talked about Thomas's passion for art, his restless nature, and how he always seemed to carry a certain melancholy.
Dad used to talk about a lost love from his youth. He never mentioned a name, but he said she was the muse who inspired his most emotional works.
As Gabriel spoke, I imagined Grandma Eleanor and Thomas together, young and in love, their paths separating but never really drifting apart. I realized that their love, though unrealized, had left an indelible mark on both of them. At the end of our conversation, Gabriel promised to send me some photos and letters that Thomas had kept. We ended the call, and I sat in silence, absorbing everything I had learned. That night, I looked out the window at the starry sky, thinking about how the choices we make echo through time, affecting not only our lives, but the lives of those who come after us. The story of Grandma Eleanor and Thomas wasn't just about a lost love, but about the paths we choose and the consequences of those choices. As I waited for Gabriel's letters, I felt a deep connection with my grandmother and Thomas, two souls separated by duty and circumstances, but forever united through love and art. And I, Eleanor's granddaughter, became the unexpected guardian of this love story, determined to honor her memory and learn from her journey. The weeks following my conversation with Gabriel were a whirlwind of emotions and introspection. The letters and photos he sent me, along with those from Grandma Eleanor, became a mirror in which I saw reflected not only their story, but also my own life. Sitting in my apartment, surrounded by these relics of a lost love, I began to examine my own choices. My job as a marketing manager, which had once seemed so important, now felt empty. The long hours at the office, endless meetings, projects that seemed to repeat infinitely, all of this began to lose meaning. I thought about Sam, my boyfriend of 5 years. Our relationship, once full of promises and shared dreams, had transformed into a comfortable but passionless routine. We were like two strangers sharing a space, our conversations limited to decisions about what to have for dinner or which series to watch. The story of Grandma Eleanor and Thomas echoed in my mind. They had been forced to give up their love due to the circumstances of their time, but me? What excuses did I have for settling for less than the fullness my heart longed for? One night, while reading Grandma's letters once again, a phrase jumped out at me. Life is too short to live other people's dreams. It was as if Eleanor was speaking directly to me, encouraging me not to make the same mistake she had. That night, I couldn't sleep. I spent hours staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the times I had ignored my inner voice in the name of stability and others' expectations. I remembered my childhood dream of being a writer, a dream I had buried under spreadsheets and reports. The next morning, I made a decision. I couldn't continue living a life that wasn't truly mine. In the days that followed, I felt a mixture of fear and excitement. For the first time in years, I didn't have a detailed plan for the future. But I had something more valuable: the courage to follow my heart. I started writing every day, letting the words flow like never before. Sometimes I wrote about Eleanor and Thomas, other times about my own experiences. I realized I had found my voice, a voice that had been dormant for so long. As I reorganized my apartment, creating a space to write, I found a quote I had jotted down years ago and forgotten. The greatest risk is not taking any risk. I smiled, thinking about how these words now resonated with a new depth. At night, sitting at my new desk, I looked at Eleanor and Thomas's letters. I felt a deep gratitude for them, for their story that had become a catalyst for my own transformation. I realized that although I couldn't change their past, I could honor their love by living my own life with courage and authenticity. With a contented sigh, I turned my attention to the laptop in front of me. The words flowed easily now, telling not only Eleanor and Thomas' story, but also my own journey of self-discovery. As I wrote, I felt as if I were untying the knots that had held me back for so long. Each word was a step towards an uncertain future, but one full of possibilities. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly alive. The sun was setting slowly, painting my small office with shades of orange and pink. I sat at my desk, a blank sheet of paper in front of me. My heart was pounding as I held the pen, ready to write a letter that would never be read by its intended recipient. I took a deep breath and began. Dear Thomas, you don't know me, but I feel like I've known you for a lifetime. My name is Sophia, and I am Eleanor's granddaughter, the woman you loved so many years ago. I found the letters she never sent to you, letters full of love, unfulfilled dreams of a life that could have been. Through these words, I met a grandmother I never had the chance to know in life, a passionate, courageous, and deeply human woman. Your love story with Eleanor touched me in a way I never imagined possible. Through her words, I saw the sparkle in your eyes when you talked about art, felt the warmth of your touch on summer nights, heard the sound of your laughter echoing through the streets of a city I've never known. I wanted you to know that your love was not in vain. It lived in the brush strokes of your works, Thomas. It lived in my grandmother's gentle smile, in the stories she told, in the way she looked at the horizon with a glimmer of nostalgia in her eyes. And now, that love lives in me. Discovering your story made me question my own life, my choices, my dormant dreams. It made me realize that life is too precious to be lived halfway, that love is too powerful a force to be ignored. Because of you both, I found the courage to change my life. I left a job that didn't fulfill me, ended a relationship that had lost its spark, and decided to pursue my dream of being a writer. Every word I write is a tribute to the love you shared, to the courage you had to feel so deeply, even knowing you couldn't be together. Thomas, I wanted you to know that Eleanor never forgot you. Her love for you colored her life in a unique and beautiful way. And through her, through these letters, you have also colored my life. I promise to live fully, love deeply, and never settle for less than what life has to offer. I do this for myself, but also for you both. For all the love you couldn't live, for all the moments you couldn't share. Your story didn't end with your separation. It continues in me, in the choices I make, in the stories I tell, in the love I dare to feel. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for loving my grandmother so completely. Thank you for inspiring her to write these letters that decades later would change my life. Wherever you are now, I hope you are at peace. And I hope that somehow you know that your love with Eleanor created waves that continue to propagate, touching lives you never knew. With gratitude and love, Sophia. I carefully folded the letter and placed it in an envelope. There was no address to send it to, but that didn't matter. The act of writing this letter was a way of closing a circle, of honoring a love that transcended time and circumstances. I looked out the window at the sky now speckled with stars. I felt a peace I hadn't experienced in a long time. Eleanor and Thomas' story had become part of my own story, a constant reminder to live with passion, courage, and authenticity. I picked up my laptop and began to write. The words flowed easily now, telling not just the story of a lost love, but also of a love found. Love for life, for art, for myself. And as I wrote, I felt as if Eleanor and Thomas were with me, their stories intertwined with mine, guiding me towards a future full of possibilities and love. The sound of my voice echoed through the conference room as I uttered the words I had rehearsed so many times. I resign. The shocked expression on my boss's face almost made me laugh. Almost. But there was a seriousness to this moment that even I hadn't expected. I left the office, feeling lighter than I ever had. Years of accumulated frustration seemed to slide off my shoulders as I walked through the busy city streets. The world looked different now, more vibrant, full of possibilities. My next step was equally difficult but necessary. I met Sam at our favorite cafe. His eyes filled with tears when I said our relationship had come to an end. Part of me wanted to back down, return to the comfort of the familiar. But Eleanor's voice echoed in my mind. Life is too short to live other people's dreams. In the days that followed, I transformed my apartment. The guest room we never used became my office. I painted the walls a deep blue that reminded me of the night sky in Eleanor's letters. I hung the photos of Thomas that Gabriel had sent me, along with some of my grandmother's most touching letters. Sitting at my new desk, I opened my laptop and began to write. The words flowed like never before. I was telling not just Eleanor and Thomas a story, but also my own journey of self-discovery. Each chapter was a tribute to their love and an affirmation of my own courage to change. Weeks turned into months. My manuscript grew, as did I. I made new friends in a local writers group. I started practicing yoga, something I always wanted to try but never found the time for. I traveled alone for the first time, visiting Paris and imagining Thomas walking those same streets decades ago. One afternoon, I received an email from a publisher interested in my book. My hands shook as I read and reread the message. It was real. It was happening. My dream, long dormant, was finally coming to life. That night, I sat on my balcony. Eleanor's letters spread around me. I picked up one of them, the last she had written to Thomas. My darling, although our paths have parted, know that you will always be the melody that echoes in my heart. Live fully, Love deeply and never stop creating beauty in this world. I smiled, feeling a deep connection with my grandmother. She couldn't live her great love, but her words had given me the courage to live mine. Not just love for another person, but love for life, for art, for myself. I looked at the starry sky, imagining Eleanor and Thomas reunited somewhere beyond the stars. I whispered a silent thank you to them for their story that had become the catalyst for my own transformation. Tomorrow, I would embark on a journey to research the setting for my next book. It was a new beginning, a new adventure. And as I prepared for this journey, I knew I carried with me not just the lessons learned from Eleanor's letters, but also the courage to live authentically, to love deeply, and to never give up on my dreams. Eleanor's unsent letters had finally found their destination. Not in Thomas' hands, but in the heart of her granddaughter, inspiring a new generation to live with passion and purpose. I closed my eyes, feeling the night breeze on my face. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I faced it not with fear, but with anticipation. Because now I knew that each day was an opportunity to write my own love story, with life, with my dreams, and with the person I was becoming. And so, with a heart full of gratitude and eyes fixed on the horizon, I prepared to turn the page and begin the next chapter of my life.
Hey there, Unraveling Ties family. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. I hope it touched your heart, made you think, or even inspired you in some way. We would love to hear your thoughts and feelings about this story. Don't be shy. Leave a comment below and share your perspective with our community. Your voice matters to us. If you enjoyed today's story and want to be a part of our journey as we unravel the complexities of human relationships, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. That way, you'll never miss a new story. We're always eager to explore new angles and dive into the themes that resonate with you the most. So tell us, what kind of stories would you like to see in upcoming episodes? Your input helps us create content that you'll love. And hey, if today's story reminded you of a personal experience or a tale you'd like to share, we're all ears. Feel free to share your own stories in the comments. Who knows, your story might even inspire a future Unraveling Ties episode. Once again, thank you for being a part of the Unraveling Ties family. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Until next time, keep embracing the ties that bind us and never stop exploring the depths of the human heart. See you in the next video.